First thing I want to say, as a Detroit Pistons fan, I am extremely proud of this basketball team, and as a human being, I am even more impressed by this basketball team because what they did, I don't think people understand how crazy what the Detroit Pistons just did in their most recent win against the New York Knicks in the 2025 NBA playoffs. That win was so big time, and I want to look at game one, and we look at the situation that the Detroit Pistons are in right now, a very young basketball team. 9 players on this roster just made their playoff debut, and they're playing the New York Knicks in the first round, with the New York Knicks having home court advantage. So they're playing in a goddamn dungeon right now, and I definitely don't mean that literally. Madison Square Garden is obviously one of the best basketball establishments in all of the world, but it's figuratively a dungeon because of those crazy goddamn fans. Those fans are so rowdy, especially after the game. It's like most of the time, most of them, they're not even talking about basketball. They're just yelling around, yelling crazy stuff about the opposing team's players. But nonetheless, the Detroit Pistons, for a very young team, for this to be their first series in a dungeon like that in Madison Square Garden, and we look at what transpired in Game 1, the Detroit Pistons were in such a prime position in the second half of that ball game. They looked like the better team, and then something catastrophic happened, and that's why I never got too worried about the Detroit Pistons, because what we saw happen in Game 1, you don't see that every day. You don't see that every month, every week in the game of basketball. The Detroit Pistons, with 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter, were up 8-9 points. In the New York Knicks, they had a crazy point in that quarter to where they went on a 21-0 run. They need something so catastrophic, something that doesn't happen every day in the game of basketball, to beat the Detroit Pistons in that fourth quarter, a 21-0 run. But even though the Detroit Pistons were in control for most of that game, just something like that, what it can do to your psyche, especially as a young basketball team, it could be very damaging. So I expected the Detroit Pistons to come out Game 2 and respond, because that's what this whole season has been about for this team. Since the last season ended, everything from there on forward has been all about emotional toughness and emotional resilience for the Detroit Pistons. We've seen it at the beginning of this season, we've seen it in the middle of this season, and we also seen it at the end of this NBA season, and now we're seeing it in the NBA playoffs. And this is why I'm so impressed with the Detroit Pistons going into Game 2. I just want to say it again. The Detroit Pistons, 9 players making their playoff debuts this season. So this is a very fresh basketball team in terms of playoff basketball. So they get into Game 2, and the players that needed to bounce back this game, they're bouncing back. We're seeing Cade Cunningham. Oh my God, he was ultra aggressive this game. We're going to get into that a little bit later. Jalen Duren, he still didn't play to the best of his abilities from what we've seen this regular season, but compared to Game 1, so much goddamn better, so much impactful, so much more enforceful, and so much more, implemented himself on the basketball game. So we seen these two guys, two of the best young players on the Detroit Pistons. We see them respond, and we see them come out and set the tone for this basketball game. And what made it so impressive, the Detroit Pistons, much like Game 1, it looks like they're in full control of this game, and they're looking like the better team versus the New York Knicks. So we get back now to that fourth quarter where the Detroit Pistons, they had a nice sizable lead, and then once again that dungeon started to activate. Those crazy goddamn fans, they started to get into the game, and that's really the only thing the New York Knicks, the only advantage they have over the Detroit Pistons right now that I can see watching the game, is their goddamn home court advantage. But when that crowd gets into it, especially in the playoffs, it's hard to overcome that. So for the Detroit Pistons, not 3 nights ago, not 4 nights ago, but just 2 nights ago, on Saturday night, they come back in Monday night, and they just needed one day to correct the mistakes and correct the mental lapses that they made in Game 1. And the New York Knicks, it seemed like they were about to do again what they did in Game 1, come back and snatch the lead away from the Detroit Pistons at the very end. But this time, them guys were able to hold on to it, and it made me so excited. Now, I'm 24 years of age. since I've been alive, and not since I've been alive, but since I've been, seriously watching the game of basketball, able to understand it. I think the Detroit Pistons have just been to the postseasons 2 times, 2016 and 2018. They got swept both of those times. So this is my first time actually seeing them win a playoff game. So I'm super excited. But in the fashion that they did it, under the circumstances that they did it, no Jaden Ivey, no Isaiah Stewart. Asar Thompson fouls out. He's in foul trouble for majority of the game, only playing 20 minutes. I'm so excited for the Detroit Pistons, and I'm so what's the word I'm looking for? I'm comfortable. That's not the word I'm looking for. But I think the Detroit Pistons are in a prime position to win this series against the New York Knicks. They went in there and they just snatched home court advantage. But just looking at this game, it was a very solid game plan by the Detroit Pistons. Having Tobias Harris guard Karl Anthony Towns and having Jalen Duren guard Josh Hart is causing a lot of problems for the Detroit Pistons, because we look at this, what the New York offense is really a lot of pick and roll, try to penetrate, and you try to throw the defense off balance. They got spot up shooters, OG Anunoby, they got Mikal Bridges, they got a cutter and Josh Hart, so they have a really simple offense. But this one minor tweak right here, having Josh Hart on having Jalen Duren on Josh Hart and having Tobias Harris on Karl Anthony Towns. They went to the post a little bit in the first half, but for whatever reason, Tobias Harris, he got a couple tough stops on Karl Anthony Towns. They went away from the post game, so now they're heavy isolation, heavy screening. But when you want your center coming up to set that screen, when they're coming up to set the screen, it's Tobias Harris. He's coming up to set the screen, and it's playoff basketball. He's fully engaged on the defensive side of the ball. Jalen Brunson, he doesn't want a 6'8", 6'9", fairly athletic player switching on him. He's trying to get to the big. But when it's Josh Hart coming to set that screen, and this is what I love, and I feel like today's NBA is nice to run to switch everything, but sometimes when it's a goddamn point guard coming up to set the screen, I don't think they try hard enough to fight through the screen. They just concede that switch so easily, and it's good to see guys actually playing defense nowadays. But Josh Hart, he's not as big as Asar Thompson, and same thing with Dennis Schroeder. They don't mind fighting through a screen with Josh Hart so they can stay attached to Jalen Brunson. So I love that defensive game plan by the Detroit Pistons, by Coach JB Bickerstaff, because they're not comfortable with Jalen Duren on Karl Anthony Towns head up just yet. But that minor tweak right there, it has caused a lot of problems for the New York Knicks as far as their half court offense. It's very predictable right now, and it gets very stagnant at times. So I'm loving that. And then on the offensive side of the ball, shout out to Cade Cunningham. Now I always knew, man, preaching this gospel for 4 years, that Cade Cunningham is gonna be one of them ones. And all we got on here, man, we just said just get him a little bit of help. Just get him some players out there that you have to respect in terms of shooting the basketball and in terms of scoring, and we will see him become an all-NBA player. And that's exactly what has happened. And after a rough game one, and that's understandable, bro. The first game of your playoff career is at the Garden with all them crazy goddamn fans. I can understand if you get overwhelmed with excitement and anxiety. But we seen what happened when he came back the next game. He's fully settled in. From the very opening tip-off, he was in straight attack mode. And I'm watching this game, and for some reason, the New York Knicks, they must have thought because he had that rough game in game one that he wasn't built for the playoffs. They wasn't trapping him as much. They wasn't double-teaming him as much. And he went at every single one of their defenders. And it looks like a situation where none of these guys want to stick Cade Cunningham. He's been busting their ass all season long, and it's about to continue in these playoffs. But he went at OG Anunoby. He got Mikal Bridges switched onto him. Mikal Bridges, he too skinny. We take him down to the post. We get Josh Hart on us. He can't stay in front of us. We still going. We're still attacking downhill. So we didn't see too many jump shots from Cade Cunningham. We saw a relentless attack, getting downhill and getting to the free throw line. He took 21 shots last night, and he also got up 13 free throws. So an all-around A+ game from Cade Cunningham. Also notched a double-double, had like 12 or 13 boards. So it was a big-time performance by Cade Cunningham. Also, Jalen Duren, way to respond. This is crazy how we overreact after one game. I'm listening to things. I'm listening to people saying, and it's crazy how some people really want to feed their egos so they can say that their predictions is right. I'm hearing people saying, well, I didn't expect the Detroit Pistons to do anything in the playoffs. If they lose this series, it won't be a disappointment to me because I know they need another star piece next to Cade Cunningham. Well, I've been watching this team all season long, the last 2 years, the journey that they've been on, the growth that they made. Me personally, I would be a little disappointed if they lost to the New York Knicks because I firmly believe that they can beat these boys. And then I'm seeing articles about Jalen Duren, and it's so crazy, man. It was like, title was like, did this Detroit Pistons player just cost himself a bunch of money after one game? And they were referring to Jalen Duren, who's 21 years of age, who when he came into the league, he was the youngest player in the NBA. So for him to have a rough game one in the NBA playoffs, much like Cade Cunningham, all those nerves, all that anxiety is very understandable. But he comes back, he bounces back, he gets 10 rebounds, he gets a couple of blocks, he's getting dunks, and he helps set the tone for his teammates for that game. So way to respond from Jalen Duren and Cade Cunningham. And then shout out to the veterans on this team. Shout out to Dennis Schroeder, a solid pickup at the NBA trade deadline. He's such a steady hand. He had 20 points off the bench, and he also knocked down the dagger three down the stretch that silenced the crowd. And then also shout out to Tobias Harris. He had 2 very solid games in games 1 and 2. He followed up his solid performance in game 1 with another one in game 2, getting a double-double, 15 points and 13 rebounds, playing terrific defense, guarding Karl Anthony Towns, who it's like he wasn't even playing in the second half. So shout out to Coach JB Bickerstaff. Shout out to the Pistons. And another plus to look at, Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. They had very, very tough shooting nights, and the Detroit Pistons still won this basketball game with no Jaden Ivey and with no Isaiah Stewart. But once again, that just goes to the credit to show you how freaking good Cade Cunningham is. He's not no average NBA player. He is not just an all-star, but he is on his way to becoming a superstar and a household name. And he can do that if he knock off the New York Knicks with all of this national attention in that basketball market. He's gonna make himself a household name. So I'm really looking forward to it. And like I said, a win like that after collapsing like that in game 1, and then in game 2 you get in that same situation where it feels like the same thing is happening again, and you just say F that. We're not letting that happen again. We're gonna win this ball game. I love that, man. So that's what I want to talk about with you guys today. I can't wait for game 3 Thursday at LCA. The way my bank account is looking, I won't be watching that game in person, but I definitely I might have to. I want to be around people when I watch it. I might have to go to a sports bar or something. I'm not sure, but that game is going to be crazy. I know that energy is going to be electric. All my older family members, my cousins, aunties, they tell me that playoff basketball for the Detroit Pistons, when they're playing good, when they're winning, it's a different type of atmosphere. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. But if you guys enjoyed, please leave a like. Comment down below how you feel about the Detroit Pistons in their first 2 playoff games against the New York Knicks, and then subscribe for more weekly content. We do this all the time, man, and that's curtains.